Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Adriana, your host for Negotiating Happiness, and it is another Monday here. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Grab your coffee, grab your lunch, and let's just get into it. Today, I'm super excited. I'm here live with Stephanie from Stephanie Kornbluth Coaching. Hello, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm excited. We haven't talked in a while, so I'm excited just to kind of get everything all caught up, and I'm excited to introduce you to everyone that's listening in. So let's dive in and see what we're talking about today. So we talked briefly before, so we're going to delve into the topic of unconditional self-worth, using self-care strategies and mindfulness techniques to create your own toolbox. And we'll talk about the importance of the mind-body connection and how that filters in all areas of your life, including your business, your personal, your friends, your family, everything. So I just want to do a quick intro here of Stephanie, or Steph. She likes to be called Steph, right? She's an intuitive eating mentor and body confidence coach who helps women to reconnect with their body, embrace the transformative power of unconditional self-worth, and guide them to honor and embody their authentic self, exactly as they are. Stephanie has a women's coaching specialist certification. She's an EFT Tapping Practitioner, an OCT certified primary school teacher. She's certified Intuitive Eating Counsellor and an entrepreneur, among many, many other roles, which we're going to dive into. So, hello.
Hello. It's funny when you hear somebody else read that all off, and I'm like, oh, not bad.
Every time. I know. Every time it's like, yeah, take it in. This is amazing.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Amazing. So just to give people a little bit of a background, we actually connected via the power of Instagram actually a couple of years ago now. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I've been sort of following your journey online, and your account blew up, and you're always so I love how authentic and consistent you are on there. So I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while, but I feel like I've sort of been keeping up, with what's going on. Yeah. So how, what are we doing these days? Tell us a little bit about what you're into these days.
Well, in terms of business, I've officially launched my intuitive eating and body confidence coaching. I had done it kind of just as a passion project previously, but didn't actually have anything kind of set in stone. I would just, people would reach out to me and I would coach them and mentor them. And I realized that this was really the next step in my journey, even though I resisted it for quite a while. I think I suffered a lot of imposter syndrome, to be honest. And yeah. I knew that I had the goods. I knew that I had been on this journey that so many other women were struggling through. And it took me somebody just blatantly saying, can I hire you to coach me, in order to say, you know what, maybe there's something here. Maybe people do need what I have, and let's just kind of put it all down into a program. And last January, I hired my own business coach and just recently launched my website this past week.
Amazing. And I will be posting it for everybody to take a peek as well. I love this for you because you, even, from the first time that I met you, you're so open and so friendly, and you're always up to, chat with people. So this is so great because you have those qualities that people would need, like an open person to be able to kind of guide them. So I love this for you. What about, let's go back a little bit and tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey and kind of where you started, because I always love hearing people's stories and their whys.
Right. Okay. So I was always that entrepreneurial child coming up with some business plan. I had a flower stand on the side of the road. I was babysitting.
I love that.
Making and selling clothes as a teenager. Like I was always finding new ways to be my own boss and to make money. But I didn't go that route originally. I was an elementary school teacher for 15 years. And
Wow.
I felt as much as I loved it at the time, I felt super constrained by the 9-to-5 role. And I was on my third mat leave and I decided I'm not going back. And I wanted to do my own thing, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And I did network marketing, which I love and really gave me the foundation for a lot of what I do now. But I wanted to be more of my own creative boss. And I wanted to be able to decide exactly what my programs looked like and exactly what I was doing. And it's that creative side and then that teaching, coaching side that I'm bringing in for my teaching career that really came together. And like I said, I think that once you become really aligned in what you are doing, then everything just falls into place. I went to school to become an intuitive eating coach, which we can kind of get a little bit more into. And I really did that for myself until I realized how many women need this. And I went back to school to become a women's coaching specialist. And all of the pieces of the puzzle just really fell into place. And I realized this was my next path. This is my calling, and really guiding women to create their own toolbox in order to become more present in their life, to become more present in their bodies, and to stop making excuses for the things that are happening and really become the hero in their own life, but they just don't know how.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of a lot of all here and there, but that's kind of how I got to where I am. There was no step path. It was just kind of like a corn maze, and I got here.
Listening to everybody's stories, there's always sort of this, especially in this realm where we're talking about, helping and women and entrepreneurship and you've mentioned motherhood as well. There's always I find this common topic, and it's community, right? So a lot of women I find that kind of get this clear idea of what they want to do once they've experienced what their community is like and what their community needs. And I love this, that I love working with people like you, for example, because you're so, like I said, you're so open to bringing more people into the fold, because there are people out there who don't have their community. So it is a lot harder to try and navigate this thing called life without seeing, positive influences or seeing what other people's lives are like. So I love that you mentioned that, because it kind of reinforces my theory around community and, building yourself up to what it is that you want to be around or in your community. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. Community and connection are everything. And I think it's something that we often lose touch with in motherhood, in entrepreneurship, and just like the daily, grind of life.
It's so hard. And as you're talking about how, your teaching career was 9 to 5 and just wasn't jiving with your lifestyle, I can already tell that, I relate to that, because I was in a similar position in professional services, and it just did not work with where I envisioned myself to be, especially having a child. That's exactly what I did too, right? I mean, I'm sure you and I have had this conversation where I said, I was pregnant, and I said, I don't want to come back to something that's not serving me or my family or, whatever the case may be. So I love seeing that, because it takes a certain amount of courage to be able to step out and say, you know what, I'm just going to do it.
Oh yeah. I think entrepreneurship is one of the scariest things that you can embark upon, and being your own boss and creating something from scratch, because there's no guidebook. I mean, you can hire a coach and you can read the books and you can listen to the podcast, but it's like having a kid. Like, you don't know until you get into it.
Right.
Life continuously throws you a curveball. And that's kind of what I love about what I do is I don't give the answers. I give you the tools to help you build your own, strategies in your own life and be able to navigate it when real life hits.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the whole thing. And, I can kind of go back to where it all began, in terms of how I got here, because I think sometimes when people see me, and I am a very confident person, but I wasn't always this way. And I like to see the confidence as a practice. It is not a feeling, because we don't always wake up and love the way that we look. And we don't always wake up and feel like the badass that we want to be, but having those tools to get there really does help. So I was that little girl who was like I danced like nobody was watching. I was like singing, twirling. I loved life until puberty hit, and my body completely changed, and it became a topic of conversation for a lot of people. It was commented on. People pinched the fat on my tummy, talked about my puppy fat, talked about just the changes in my body, and I became incredibly self-conscious, and I put on a lot of weight, and I was treated very differently. And I couldn't understand how so many people thought it was okay to comment on my body negatively, especially adults. And I spent decades trying to shrink my body unsuccessfully until I was 21 and went on a really, really, really restrictive diet. And I finally had that feeling of, now I know what all my best friends felt like. Now I got all this attention, but now I'm terrified to go back. I'm terrified to gain weight. And that's where that conditional sense of self-worth came in. I was worthy, I was pretty, I was this, I was that, as long as I was still in a small body. And if I wasn't in that body anymore, nobody would love me, nobody would like me, nobody would want to hang out with me. I wouldn't have that same sense of the person who I had now identified with. And that went on from 21 until I was about 38. Was a lot of time, a lot of energy that I took away from my family. I took away from my kids. I took away from the life that I should have been living, because I was so consumed with being this version of myself that I had become. And I remember after my third baby, I was on my millionth weight loss journey, and I'd taken my millionth progress photo. And I tried on my pre-pregnancy jeans, and they wouldn't fit. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that.
It's okay. It's
okay. I can't do this to myself anymore. I can't take another progress photo. I can't take away time from my kids. And I decided from that moment forward, I was just going to focus on my mindset. I was going to wake up every single day, and I was going to bring myself into the present moment. And I was going to enjoy being a mom, enjoy being Steph, enjoy being a wife, enjoy being in the moment, rather than worrying about everything else. And it was incredible how my life changed. And it was incredible how I was able to heal my relationship with food, heal relationship with working out. And it was incredible how I was able to then become the mom that I'd always wanted to be, because I could be there for my kids, and I wasn't always having this chatter in my mind. And over time, I discovered what intuitive eating actually was. I discovered that I wanted to go to school for that. And then I discovered that this was my next step, is teaching women how to put these tools in their toolbox and create a life where they can be present, when they can prioritize themselves, and where they don't have to define their worth based on the way that other people see them, that it has to come from within.
Right. Right. And a super powerful story. And I'm sure that a lot of women can relate to that, you know, through the struggles. But I just wanted to backtrack a little bit just to make a comment on, imagine how much of an impact the attitudes of other people had on you as a child.
Oh.
So something on commenting on things that are temporary, right? Like the way that our body looks oftentimes is so temporary, but it left such a profound, you know, impression in your mind that it affected you basically throughout your entire childhood, teen years, you know, like your 30s. Like that's insane to me that we don't think about what we say sometimes. We just say it, it's left our mouth, and we think that on it goes, but sometimes it sticks, and it sticks in the worst way possible, right?
Yeah.
So that's one that leaves me thinking a lot about parenting and about how I can navigate things with kids, right?
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I did I mean, I use the word damage, but I did do some damage to my kids when they were little in the way that I spoke about food, or the way that I spoke about what I can and can't eat, the way that I demonized food.
Right.
And during those super formative years with my kids, I did have no sugar, no this, no that. And it's funny that I recently just told a story on my Instagram about how I went to a naturopath, and the naturopath said not to let my kids eat certain things. And my daughter went to kindergarten and started to steal the snacks out of other kids' lunches.
Right.
And it's like, that's what we do as adults too. We start to do things in secret because we're afraid of what other people think about us.
Right. Right. And it's powerful because, like you said, those years are so important for kids, right? And it's funny how you draw the parallels. Like we do the same thing. We will eat something and not put it on in our food journal, or we won't tell somebody, or we'll hide the wrapper, or we'll throw it out outside so it doesn't look like I've been there. Look, I've been there. I've done the up and down thing. I've done, you know, so many programs. And after all of it, I have to say that after all of it, the biggest impact that has been mentally, not physically, because physically I figured out that I liked myself in different sizes. You know, it took a while, even when I was, you know, all of a sudden I had shrunk down. I was like, oh wow, like why don't I feel different? Because all the work had gone into like the physical part rather than like up here too, right? So I've been there, completely understand, but after all of it, I think the biggest impact, not a good impact, it would have been on my mental health and my perception of things. Like you said, we demonize food, or we demonize certain activities, or we feel less than when we don't follow these really strict programs that have nothing to do with, they don't take into account our cycles. They don't take into account the seasons. They don't take into account, you know, whether we're sick, whether we're not, whether we're like, it's crazy how we try to put ourselves in these boxes that are one size fits all, which that doesn't apply to any of us, right?
No. And I love what you just said. And I would like to circle back when you asked yourself, why don't I feel different? And I think that because we're sold this story that once you achieve this, you will feel this.
Yes.
And then you get there and you're like, well, why don't I feel this way? What's wrong with me? I should feel different. But it's because we've worked so hard to change this exterior, but we've neglected the inside.
Right.
It's what's called front lawn living. Have you ever heard of that saying?
No, what is it? I missed it.
Like living on your front lawn. So
okay.
The first time, let's say you got a new house and you go in that house and you're like, oh my gosh, like I love this place. And you're like, I want to decorate it. And you paint the walls and you pick out furniture and you just love it. Like you feel so at home. But then you're like, okay, let's go for a walk. And then you start to notice, oh my gosh, like my neighbors have like more plants outside. They have a greener lawn. Oh, did they just get new windows? And so you start to think, I need that. And I need to work on my lawn, and I need to put new windows in and garage door. And you start to really build up that exterior. And then you realize, crap, I haven't been inside in a while. What does it look like in there? And you also realize you've never been in your neighbor's home. You don't know what it looks like in there. You don't know if they have, magazines piled at the ceiling. You don't know if they have any furniture in there at all. So all are living on our front lawns, comparing what everybody else looks like, neglecting what's happening inside.
I talk about this all the time with the phenomenon of Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, right? We do the whole, I love that. I love that you mentioned that front lawn living online. We do that. And it's mainly because I think it starts out as good intentions. I think it says, I want to portray myself in a certain way. I want to work on my mindset. So the more I portray this picture, the more I'm going to become it. But then everybody has that mindset, and some people cut corners and some people don't. It depends. We're all different. So then you start looking at your neighbors, like you said, say, oh, wow, look at how many followers they've got. Look at how many, it applies to business as well. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that you can tell that it stems from mindset, like you said, right? So because it spills into everything else, they want to be perfect online. And they'll say, well, my competitor has, 20,000 followers. And I said, yeah, but your competitor probably doesn't have 20,000 customers, right? So it's kind of that thing. It was like, well, what's behind that curtain? We can see the 20,000, but we don't know what's behind that curtain. It's the exact same thing. And I like to draw parallels from that to be like, if you're not okay up here about what's in here, then you can't also keep giving to your family, your kids, your partners, your clients, your, like everybody around you, because you just keep taking out of an empty cup, and you just keep taking and taking and taking. So it's hard. It's hard these days. And I'm hoping this is my prediction. We'll see. I think now that they keep changing the algorithms, especially with Instagram, so they're not putting as much emphasis on followers and whatnot, I think it's going to push people to put through more value content. So I'm hoping that we slow down at the rate that we consume content, because it burns us out. Look at fitness influencers, and I feel like they have to continuously put on content all the time, right? There's no break.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Right? And I think that, like, I know that it is such burnout, but I think it's also burnout for the person who's like consuming it. And I have heard that it's going 100%. For longer form content that they're going to favor, which I do love, because I think we got to a place where it's so passive. And I always say that even be mindful in what you're consuming online, because realistically, we are the creator of our own feed. We're the creator of the people that we follow. So you can't blame anything on social media because you chose to follow those. Right. I actually just heard something recently that online bullying doesn't exist because you can just get offline. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. Like, and I get like that's an extreme, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be there. Like, you can choose to what you allow in. And so, yes, all of that does live there. But all I'm saying is that we are the creator of what we consume. It's the same with the way that it's the same with the way that we eat. It's the same with the music that we listen to. It's the same with anything. We are the ultimate creator of that. And so when you can curate it in a way that is healthy for you, right, then that's the ultimate goal.
So I agree. We have control over this. Here's what's really important to discern from. Our kids don't have the same control or the same thinking because their brains aren't, developed yet. So when they say, well, just get offline, well, like they can't, their peers are on there. I feel like they have a lot less control over their own emotions. And it's also really hard because imagine, I mean, you have 3 kids, you know better than I do. Imagine getting things out of them. Sometimes it's like pulling teeth, and it's like, okay, first of all, I don't even know what's going on with you. I don't even know if you're upset. They're not going to have a conversation like you and I would be like, listen, I just had this crazy story happen to me online. I've decided to do X, Y, Z about it. They don't have that kind of thinking yet. So it's really hard. And I find that some adults, to some extent, still have difficulty having that kind of an open thought pattern, right? So this is why it's so great to have people in our lives like yourself that can guide people to say, hey, I'm looking from a bird's eye view into your situation, whereas you're in it. So sometimes it's really hard to see it, right?
Totally. Right. Yeah. And I mean, like I said, that was kind of a little bit an extreme version.
But it's true. But I agree, though. It is true what you're saying. Right. We have control over it.
We have, and I think that, I mean, there's 3 ways that we can approach our lives, which is you can be the villain, you can be the victim, or the hero, right? Now, I spent most of my life being the victim. Most of my life, I was such a victim. Everything was somebody else's fault. I was a victim of my childhood. I was a victim of the way that I was raised. I was a victim of the bullying that I had experienced. I was a victim of everything. And until I realized that I was not going to grow, I was not going to ever become the person that I wanted to become, the person that I was destined to become, unless I decided to become the hero in my own. And to be fully transparent, I'm sure there were times that I was a villain as well. And so until I was ready to take ownership, I wasn't able to grow.
Right.
And I think that that's probably one of the hardest things. And that's actually a lesson that I teach my kids on a very regular basis. And they're 11, 8, and 4, is that the greatest thing that you can do is own what you've done and learn from it. And I think that that's one of the things in life. And you're right, our kids don't always have the ability. Their brains are not fully developed, but it's like those little golden nuggets that you can teach them along the way. And I'm also a really crazy person with monitoring my kids' internet. But
I think it's great.
But it's the same with food, right? We can only monitor things so much until they rebel. So it's giving them the tools, giving them the education and the knowledge as to why there's certain parameters.
Right.
You know, my kids are allowed, takeout, but not every day. Okay, why? They need the education piece.
Sure, for sure. I agree with that. We just have a hello here. Hi, Melissa. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Hello. That's so exciting.
I mean, a lot of us can relate to that. A lot of us, and it's great to hear that, you don't have to wait till you're like us in our 30s to be like, oh no, I messed up. Now I got to backtrack everything. You know what I mean? So it's great that you have some tips that are also really helpful for dealing with kids and just basically doing the right thing and ensuring that, you don't have to cause them so much grief that they have to have extra therapy. I always think about that. I'm like, how much damage am I doing?
I mean, we all do, right? Because the pendulum swings back and forth. We always joke that we might as well, we shouldn't have an education fund. We should just have a therapy fund. But I'm like, I'm the biggest, proponent for therapy, different kinds of therapy. I've been in therapy, couples therapy. My kids have not the littlest one, but the other 2 have been to therapy. Like, I think it's an amazing thing because in the same way that we want to nourish our bodies, our brains, our soul, our everything, I think that we can benefit from all of that.
100%. Yeah. So we've got a follow-up comment here. Melissa says, I love this, setting them up for success while letting them learn. That's the whole purpose, right? That's the whole purpose. I love it too. So tell us a little bit about, actually, we're actually halfway through. Wow. Time is flying by, everybody. So for those of you that are just tuning in, you are listening to Negotiating Happiness, and I'm your host, Adriana Fierstro, and we are live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And you can also find some of our shows on Roku TV if you want to kick back and relax and watch some of the shows. I am here today with Stephanie Kornbluth, and she is a intuitive eating mentor and body confidence coach. And we're tackling pretty much everything because it all spills into our day-to-day lives. We're talking about unconditional self-love, self-care. And we just touched on the topic of how to set ourselves up for success, starting young, including our perspective as parents and to our kids as well. I was just going to kind of go on and ask Steph, tell us a little bit about who you work with typically and what kind of work you do in this realm.
So typically it is moms, because those are the ones who tend to follow me, but you don't have to be a mom. Women, usually 35 to 45, kind of in that perimenopause range when life starts to shift a little bit, that little sandwich generation when little kids, parents, massive sense of overwhelm, and a lot of trouble prioritizing your own self-care. Many of us feel like either we're too tired or we feel guilty to put ourselves first. And I really do love to help you create that toolbox, give you all of those tools for mindfulness, becoming more present in your life, and then also being able to put yourself first, like that oxygen mask on first. And so actually right now we have a body confidence boot camp that's going to start next Thursday, which is really fun because I do work one-on-one with clients as well, but this is a great way to do it in a small group setting where we get together every Thursday at noon Eastern Standard Time, just via Zoom. And the cool thing, the way that I set it up is there's not a bunch of homework before, there's not coursework afterwards. You're going to come, you're going to learn tools that you can take and implement into your life right away. So we're going to talk about thought patterns, negative self-talk, principles of intuitive eating, and mindful movement. And one thing that I also love is teaching women how to dress in a way that makes them feel comfortable and confident. Because even though that's a little bit more on the vanity side of things, the clothes that we put on our body holds energy, and walking through life, like we all wear clothes, and I want you to be able to show up in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. So we're going to have a different topic every single week for 6 weeks. And it's just going to be, I always say, like, it's like having lunch with your girlfriends. You're going to come, you're going to get the tools, and you're going to go off in your daily life and implement these. So in 6 hours, over like 1 hour over 6 weeks, you will feel that shift. And my goal is always to allow women to understand that they are worthy, no matter what, worthy of love, acceptance, and putting themselves first. Yeah. So that's what I have coming up right now. If you wanted more information, you can pop over to my Instagram. It's Steph_Kornbluth. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes, right?
Yeah, it is in our description, and we're also posting on the comments. And here we go. It's on the banner as well. It's Steph_Kornbluth. Awesome. Steph posts a lot of awesome things on there, and I'm pretty sure on your newsletters you send out some pretty awesome recipes too. So I remember some of the just delicious recipes.
Yes, I definitely do. Yeah. Quick and easy. I always say that don't come to my page for aesthetic food things, because I am real life messy mom. You are never going to get a sugar-coated version of life with me. And I always laugh because when I originally started my Instagram page, I wanted it to be an aspirational lifestyle brand. And I'm like, who did I think I was? And this is me authentic self. And now showing up as my authentic self, as the woman who is messy, whose kids are just wild, who just like, my kitchen is a mess behind me, but that's real life. And that's what I'm here for. And that's who I show up for, to show you that it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be pretty, but it does have to be you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it's funny that you say that. I'm laughing because I feel like we all went through that stage of, where blogging was a thing. Then it was video blogs, like vlogs. And then Instagram started going off with like all the stories and the reels and stuff. And it's like we all aspired to be that person of like, oh my God, it would be so nice to look at my feed and it's all like perfect. And I think it came from like a desire to feel like that more than look like that on the outside. So if I find that it's true for the people that just wanted to feel like that, they probably had some like inner soul searching. Like I was one of them, to be like, listen, I don't have time or resources for this to look perfect at all times. So you're going to get what you're going to get. And I think people love that. I think people love that.
Gosh, yeah. And that's probably one of the number one comments I get in my DMs on a daily basis is, thank you for showing up messy, because it gives you permission to understand that, nothing is perfect. And one of the beauties of when I talk about body confidence, I'm not talking about looking in the mirror and thinking you look like a supermodel every day. It is showing up knowing that you're worthy no matter what. You're worthy whether your kitchen's a mess. You're worthy whether, you blow dried your hair or not. Like all of these things come from within. And that's where the whole idea of, I love body confidence comes from acceptance in all areas of your life. Yes. And I find that the more centered and grounded that you are in that, the more that you're in touch with your feelings and who you are, the more that it just radiates through all areas of your life. Like the more that you can see that your kids are more calm and your relationships feel more aligned, and just stop trying and just start being.
Yes. And I have to say, this is kind of like a comment to our overarching discussion here. When people try to be nice, so they'll make certain comments that if you think about them, they do give you validation in the way, oh, you've lost weight, or oh, you look you've done your makeup, you look beautiful, as if that's the only time that you look beautiful. And I know that they don't mean it that way, but it kind of goes back to this idea of maybe it's just our generation, I don't know, but I think other generations can relate to it.
I think so.
When somebody starts talking to you about dating, or you're young, you're looking at dating, whatever, and you always think like, well, if I'm going to be skinny though, I'm going to probably date better, or I'm probably going to, it's that feeling of being picked, right? Which I think I've overanalyzed in my head. And I'm very thankful that from a younger age, I kind of figured out that that's not the secret sauce, right? But a lot of people still have that in their head because they can't remove beauty from size, right? Like those are two very different things. You can be beautiful, you can be, whatever in any size. It depends on you. And I think that all comes down to what you said about confidence. And this really relates to business as well. And here's my take on it.
Yeah, tell me.
When people say that typically more symmetrical faces that are, in your typical traditional beauty standards tend to be more successful. And while I agree with it, I think a lot of it has to do with confidence, because those people, like you said, have been treated their entire lives like they are worth more, because they're conditioned to think that, I'm looking at somebody that's and they are beautiful. That's not the issue. It's just the way that people perceive them and treat them that is the issue here, right? And I think, because I've met a lot of entrepreneurs and I've met a lot of entrepreneur women, I think that a lot of us have figured out that size doesn't have anything to do with confidence when it comes down to this. As long as you work up here and you do what's good for your body and your body's responding positively to it. So like your health, your nutrition, the sustainability of what you're doing, really, right? Long term. I think confidence just starts going, oh, hey, I can do this. You're like, why was I hanging on to this idea that I had to be a certain way to do? And don't get me wrong, you can continue to work at it. If that's what makes your soul happy, you should work on it. You should, go forward. But it's funny because I think in entrepreneurship, I've met a lot of people who are like, I think they're beautiful, but if you're thinking as, traditional beauty or size or whatever, they're not. And they're very successful because they figured that portion of it out, and they know how to like grab the attention of a whole room.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I say that confidence is an energy, not a size, right?
Yes.
You can
100%.
feel an energy when somebody walks into a room. I used to say this to my husband, if he walked in and his energy was heavy or light. And I'd be like, ooh, I can feel that. And he was like, well, what are you talking about? He understands it now. He's more in the woo-woo with me now.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. But so energy, it's energy, right? And that's what that confidence, it just radiates. And it's the same with business. Yeah. There are certain people that are so attractive because their energy is attracting.
Yes.
And so what we put out, we get back. And it took me a really long time to understand why my life was so chaotic. And it was because I was chaotic in here and in my heart. Everything was chaos. Yeah. And I can remember the first time I turned to my husband and I said, our kids aren't the problem. We're the problem. And he was like, what? And I said, we're the problem. We're the chaotic ones. Right. And he was like, what do we do? I'm like, we stop. We have to stop the chaos. Yes. And when we stopped the chaos, it was like instant.
Yeah.
And so that the same principle goes for everything, right? We operate on a certain frequency. And when we're operating on that frequency, that's what we attract. And if we don't like what we're attracting, we've got to start looking within.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's harder sometimes because we're parents, wives, partners, business owners, daughters, sisters. So it is hard to kind of balance it all. And I talk about this all the time about how I think we're biting off more than we can chew, health-wise. And that's why it's really good to have breaks. Yes. But and here's another point that I wanted to make. I've seen you post your befores and afters throughout. So even when you were different sizes and whatever else. And from my perspective, like I remember just always looking at them and I'm like, oh my God, Steph, you've always been beautiful. Right. So I understand what you're saying though, as your size would change, like you had, your own issues that you were struggling with as your body was changing. But in me from the outside, a person who has gone through this up and down, and I'd like to think that I've worked on my mindset quite a bit by now, that I'm just like, oh my God, Steph, like you're beautiful. And sometimes I wish you could just like make that person feel that, but you can't. And that's why you're right. You have to start here on the inside, no matter how many people tell you that you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're like, oh, thanks. And it feels good for like a second. And then you're like, why am I still not feeling the way that other people are saying? It's because exactly you're at that stage where you're starting to figure out that other people's perceived value of you isn't your actual value.
Yes. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's that unconditional sense of self-worth, right? I am worthy even if I don't have that validation. I'm worthy even if I don't have people complimenting me. I'm still a good person. I'm still a good human. I still love myself. I'm still worthy of being treated with respect or, receiving certain business offers, like all of these things. I'm still the same person inside, just a different exterior. And, it's funny because I actually went through about a year where I was super triggered by people asking me if I had lost weight, because it gave me a sense of fear of, oh my God, have I lost weight? Should I keep losing weight? Will I look good? Will they still compliment me if I put on weight? What have I been doing? Like all of these things, it brought all these patterns. And so something that I've learned is that emotions and feelings really only last about 60 to 90 seconds. After that, it's all tied to stories that we have. And so those feelings of like feeling really great when somebody gives you a compliment, that peters off. And then all of a sudden we tie it to a story of when we felt great before, and we start searching for that. Or if we feel really crappy, it's tied to another story. It's all these imprints on our subconscious mind. And so if we can learn to detach from that good, bad feeling and just simply be in the moment and understand where that's coming from, it really allows us to not have those highs and lows, and to not then, create that cycle of negative thinking or even positive thinking. And even though it feels really good when people compliment us, and that is really nice, and I'm not saying don't compliment people.
Right.
What I mean is that we can't, if we're going to let go of the negative things that people say about us, we also can't get wrapped up in the positive things that people say about us, because then we rely too heavily on those. You have to believe those things from within. And it's funny, I go back to when I was a teacher, I taught primary school. And, in grade 1 and grade 2, kids are always saying, oh, like, is this good? Did I do good? Do you like this? And my response would always be, do you like it? Instead of, because if you just say, oh, it's beautiful. Oh, this looks great. They're seeking external validation.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that with my son. I totally am, because I do that all the time too. And I sit there thinking, am I setting him up to always look for validation from me? Because I don't want that, You're right.
And it's hard because, we do want to give them like praise and everything. But I always remember wanting to say that. I trust me, I say it to my kids all the time. Absolutely. But I also try and have them understand that it doesn't really even matter what I think. I am proud of them, but it doesn't matter, because they need to be proud of themselves first. Can we be proud of them together? Like, is that exciting? Absolutely. But it really has to come from within. And so I try and now nurture that. So then they don't always need to come to me and say, do you like this? It's that whole, look at me, mommy, look at me, watch me. It's draining.
I know.
So like, sometimes I'll say, practice, show me your very best one. Giving them that little something where we can celebrate that moment, but not always.
But that's a good habit to make though for them, because I find that now too, I think we went into like an overdrive of like positivity at one point. So, how they make, and remember how they always make fun of us that, millennials are slow snowflakes because, we get participation trophies. I get that. So that's so good to say, you have to practice in order to be really good at something. So start doing this now, or, you have to try it a couple times. It's okay if you fall down, just get back up again, try it again. And then, show me what it's such a good, I think, mindset to have. And that actually applies to entrepreneurship as well. I always say that if you are doing so well in your business that you're not making any mistakes or you're not having any failures, that means that you're not putting yourself out there enough.
Yeah.
So you're just plateaued. And at some point that will drop again, right? You're just waiting for the time to tick. Yeah. But if you can put yourself out there, do things that are scary, do things that are unknown, if you fail at a launch or whatever, we've all been there, right? It's okay. So learn from it. Where could you have, done things differently? How are you going to do it differently next time? And then next time you will see progress. And that's just how we learn. It's just how we learn. Yeah. And it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think that you're right that millennials are a snowflake generation, which I think why so many people feel like they're either living in their comfort zone, afraid to fail, or the whole imposter syndrome. And I mean, I'll give you a story. I went to a round table where we had to open up our businesses and talk about it. And it was very early in me coming up, developing my whole coaching program. And I was the first one to go up, and I bombed. It was so, I don't know what, it wasn't embarrassing, but it was just like eye-opening. And I got down and I was like, okay, so that sucked. And so I sent my husband a message and I was like, I bombed. And he was like, do you want to talk? And I was like, no, you know what? It was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because now I went to bed that night and I was like, I need to redo everything in the morning. I woke up and I revamped everything. I took it as that learning opportunity, but like, listen, I've done a lot of work to get to the point where I could have accepted that.
Sure.
Me 2 years ago, I would have been crumbling on the floor. I probably would have left the event and like cried in my car, but we have to fail, right? We have to try. And my daughter just had a dance audition 2 weeks ago, and we left and she was really upset in the car. And she was like, I didn't do my best. And no, she said, I don't think I'm going to make it. And I said, well, did you do your best? And she said, no. I said, how come? She was like, well, I was worried about what everybody else thought. And I said, well, if you make it, then you have to learn that that's not the way to approach things. And if you don't make it, it's going to be a really hard lesson to not care what other people think.
Right.
And
but either way, you're going to learn something.
Yeah. And I think that we need to look at failures in every aspect of our life as not failures, but just really, learning experiences and being able to let go, go of that sense of, oh God, I embarrassed myself. Oh God, I failed. What are people going to think?
Yeah.
And just move on.
Yeah. And I'm not, and I wasn't saying it as like, we're the snowflake generation. I just know that other generations referred to us as that. I can see it from the side of, that's great. You spent your childhood getting participation trophies, but when you're failing in real life, nobody's handing you a participation trophy unless you yourself, like your participation trophy is doing that reflective, like you said, you know what, maybe this was the best thing that happened to me because now I have a flood of ideas and I got my confirmation of here's the feedback I got and I value it because of X, Y, Z. And then you went with it. Do you know what I mean? Like that's literally the purpose of some of these events sometimes. And I think people get really stuck on like, how am I going to look to people? Like how everybody thinks I'm this person, this business owner. How am I not going to be able to perform that way? And I always say, you're not going to make everybody happy. Not everybody's your ideal client. And you're not going to get along with everybody. And that's okay. You can still be in these situations and be an adult about it. Yeah. And only take what is organic. Like if you're forcing it anyway, you don't want it. You know what I mean?
And I think like you just really hit the nail on the head for me, because I used to be that person who was like, I want to help everyone. But then I didn't show up as me because I couldn't show up as me because I'm sweet, but I'm also sassy and I'm going to cheer you on, but I'm going to call you on your bullshit. And that's who I'm going to help. And so when you show up as who you are, you're going to attract that right person. Right. And when you show up as who you are and what you can do, then I find everything just falls into place so much easier. And that's what those situations are really for.
100%. So we're almost at the hour here, which kind of flew by. I wanted to ask you, just so that we can get to know you a little bit better and just to know what makes this worth it for you. Like, what do you like to do for yourself? Like, what do you like? For me, it's travel, right? Like I want to see these places. I want to experience them. What's that thing for you?
So on a daily basis, I am a psychopath and I get up at 5 a.m.
I love it.
I get up at 5 a.m. I was not a morning person until I had kids and they forced me to be a morning person because they get up early. 100%. So now I get up earlier. So I get up and I do tapping. So the EFT tapping, I do that to bring myself into the present moment. I also then do some mobility training because I'm 42 and my back is like starting to feel the wear and tear of my age.
You look amazing. And
then I work out. So I get that all done in the morning. That is my time, my form of self-care. That's my non-negotiable. In terms of something that like really fuels my soul, I love to go on vacation with my husband. We made it a priority when we got married. We got pregnant right away. And we said, we didn't get the honeymoon period. We really want to spend time, just the two of us. And so ever since we started having kids, we always said that we would go away at least once a year. We would have date nights on a regular basis. And that to me allows us to both be like ourselves and not just mom and dad. Those are my main things. I'm a person who likes to keep in touch with my friends. And so I prioritize seeing my friends on a regular basis. I love being a mom, but I love being Steph. And so that is my form of self-care.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I just wanted to reiterate again. So if you guys go to stephaniekornbluth.com, you'll find it in the comments here as well, even if you're looking through the archives. Stephanie works one-on-one, and she has a coaching program as well. You can check out more information there. But also, she's on Instagram. She lives on Instagram just like I do. And check her out there, or send her a DM, see what her resources are about. I know I took a quick look on your website. You have a couple of resources there available as well. So that's always super fun, just to dive into this world a bit, right?
Yes. And then I also have Body Confidence Bootcamp that starts on the 26th, which is next Thursday. We will meet every week for 6 weeks at noon Eastern Standard Time, and it's via Zoom. So that will be lots of fun. You're going to walk away with tons of tools for your toolbox and really be able to implement those immediately.
And maybe you'll just find your community there, right? So you never know who you're going to meet there. So like I said, I met Steph on Instagram. So here we are.
Beautiful.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. We should talk about, other topics. I can think already of probably a million other things we could talk about. You should come back on the show if you like.
I'd love to. Yeah.
And I thank you so much for everybody that tuned in. We had people tuning in on Facebook, on YouTube. Twitch was streaming as well. And of course on Instagram as well, which is super helpful because that's where we live. Thank you to everyone in the chat room. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network for this platform. And I hope you guys will join us next week. If you guys also have any suggestions on topics that you'd like to hear about, I am always open. Please send me a DM or make a comment on one of our postings and I will see it. Thank you and have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Thanks.